Despite Zelda Majora's Mask basically being a horror game, one of its key devs didn't think its creepiest features were scary at all. People on the team were like, whoa. Yes, Majora's Mask is a horror game, and no one can convince me otherwise. So I seen this article and I thought it was pretty interesting, mainly because when it comes down to Majora's Mask, when that game first was released and when I had the opportunity to play it, there were a lot of things that really did creep me out, especially whenever you consider like whenever Link would put on one of the masks from like either the Deku mask, the Zora's mask, or the Goron mask. Whenever he would kind of do that, like it's kind of taken over, and then he lifts his face up, and then it shows the mask in like a really creepy way. That was one of the things that kind of freaked me out a little bit when I was younger. I was like, wow, that's really weird. So seeing that the dev, that worked on this game wasn't really creeped out by it, depending on how old he was at the time, I can kind of see that being a thing. But for me, it was one of those things, like little features like that was kind of creepy. And then I remember, because when I first played this game, it was a long time ago. I was really young, but whenever I did have the actual opportunity to go back and replay it and actually play it to beat it, I was a little bit older then. And a lot of that stuff that kind of creeped me out when I was younger didn't necessarily have me feel the same way as I got older. But one thing I did notice was that whenever I would play Majora's Mask, there was like an eeriness kind of feeling I would get to it whenever I would play it sometimes. And nothing in particular. I'd just be like kind of playing, and then I'd kind of just get like these little like goosebump feeling of like, man, I don't know, this game's it's a weird one, and it's one of those things. If I were to go back and play it again, which I probably should be doing pretty soon, yeah, it is something where it doesn't like bother me in a sense, but it probably would give me that kind of like a little bit of a goosebump feeling again. So, which is one of those things I think is pretty funny. So per usual, we'll go ahead and go over this article, and then I'll go ahead and give my thoughts on it. So, maybe it's because I was a young kid when The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask released in 2000, but I've always remembered it as a Zelda game that came close to being a fully fledged horror game. Wait, no, it's definitely just because it's scary as hell. And yeah, like I said, it definitely has some creepiness to it. One of the things I was a little bit disappointed with as well was the fact that when it came down to Tears of the Kingdom, I remember like kind of leading up to its release and everything, there was a lot of people that were having speculations of what the game was going to be like. And one of the things that I was hearing a lot of was that Tears of the Kingdom was going to have potential to be in the same kind of horror aspect and have that creepiness to it that Majora's Mask had. And unfortunately, when the game came out, I really did like Tears of the Kingdom. I thought it was a good game, but it wasn't close to getting on that same type of level as Majora's Mask, which was a little bit disappointing just because that dark tone that it had was something that I really liked, because you don't really see that in Zelda games. So the fact that it was even being considered was something that had me, really excited, but just a little bit disappointed that that wasn't actually the case. So aside from the obvious stuff like the rage-filled moon that's staring at you with bared teeth, the whole game just had this pervasive sense of strangeness that's just really uncanny and unsettling. A few years later, Twilight Princess would inherit some of that spooky DNA, but that game is more analogous to a rebellious but good natured teenager who hung around Hot Topic too much around 2006. And yeah, I can kind of get that feeling when it comes down to it's Twilight Princess. So, no, Majora's Mask is downright scary at times, and yet one of its key developers, Takaya Imamura, never felt that way at all, telling Edge in its issue number 407 that some key elements had already been decided, like the moon falling and the mask and that kind of thing. I needed to come up with a world that they would fit into and that would fit them in turn. So yeah, that is one of the things. If you do look at some of the earlier kind of developing etches, I think it is, and stuff like that, when it comes down to the moon falling, I don't think they actually had the moon with the face. It was just like a regular moon that was falling, but then they decided to add that into it later, if I'm not mistaken, which just added so much to that creepiness of the game itself, which was really good. So in terms of the design of the mask and the moon, personally, I didn't think of them as scary at all. I had in mind coming up with a unique design approach for them, but everybody told me how scary they were. People on the team were like, whoa, it's just how it came out, I guess, which is really cool, because I bet you anything, it was just kind of like you said, it's just him working, him kind of like in the zone and kind of thinking like, this is probably what it'll be like, how it'll look really well if I were to kind of go this route. And then, people check it out and they're probably like, dang, dude, like that's pretty creepy. You know what I mean? So the fact that he was able to just kind of come up with that himself, kind of off the top of his head, and not really look at it in that way, I think it's really cool. And then it's funny because the mask and the moon are probably the scariest part of Majora's Mask. Wait, no, that dubious horror has to go with the Gibdos in Ikana Canyon and the scene with that poor girl's mummified father. I genuinely still get the creeps thinking about that. And yeah, those are definitely some of the weirder parts, especially when the girl's mummified dad, he is kind of like walking towards you and he's making that same kind of noise. It is really weird that some of the stuff they have you doing. So, anyways, yes, Majora's Mask is a horror game, and no one can convince me otherwise. And that's one of the cool things, man. Like, especially because Takaya Imamura, he's been coming out, like I stated in my last video, in regards to him talking about, needing great ideas more so than a big budget to kind of make sure that your game is going to be successful. He has been coming out, like I stated, with a lot of takes recently. And again, he's coming out with another one that I really appreciate in this one because I think it is so cool the fact that he was the art director behind this and he was able to come up with these ideas. And to him, it wasn't necessarily something that was creepy. It was just something that just kind of, I guess you could say, like just rolled off the cuff for him, which is really cool in my opinion. And I think that's really awesome that that's kind of just what he decided to go with, and it actually ended up working out really well. So kudos to that dude because he was able to come up with something really great and really horrifying that I'm sure scared a lot of kids when they were younger, which is pretty funny in my opinion. So yeah, good stuff, man. So those are my thoughts on that. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. If you guys could like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you guys have been watching this song, I really appreciate it. It means a lot. And yeah, until next time, Harmonic out. Peace.